Hi everyone, my name is Catherine Lawless, Manager of Program Design at AVIXA, and welcome to Building Your Personal Brand During Challenging Situations. Today I'm being joined by Camille Birch, Editor of Digital Signage Magazine, Mark Coxon, Sales Director of Technology at Tangram Interiors, and Chris Netto, Marketing Development Manager at Starin. Camille has over 25 years of business-to-business communications and writing experience as editor of Digital Signage Magazine, and she also monitors marketing trends that impact cutting-edge digital signage activations while also managing marketing communications for a global integration company. Mark has worked in AV for over 18 years, working with homeowners, business owners, and public spaces to help people work better together and promote their ideas and generate a call to action to get results. And Chris is an audiovisual professional with experience in installations, AV management, team building, sales, AV site assessment, system design, project management, event coordination, vendor management, on-site and off-site meeting support, and AV managed services, as well as technology trends and executive support. Before I hand over the presentation to Camille, just a few housekeeping items. For those viewing live today, the webinar qualifies for one CTS, CTSD, and one CTSI RU credit. Please allow 5 to 7 business days to view on your transcripts, and for any issues, email webinars@avixa.org. The webinar will be approximately 45-60 minutes, and all attendees will be placed on mute. If you have any questions during the presentation, please enter them into the Q&A window only, so today's moderator can address them at the end of the webinar. To access the Q&A window, simply move your cursor to the bottom of your live stream video box to locate the Q&A icon and type away. You will also have access to this recorded webinar at avixa.org/webinars within about 5 business days. And now, Camille, on over to you.
Well, thanks very much. It's great to be here. On behalf of AVIXA, Mark and Chris and myself, we welcome you. It's going to be an exciting ride. We put our heads together to give you a great overview of building your personal brand during this time. And first want to say hi to my pals and Mr. Netto, fresh off of your nomination as part of the Power 20 Most Influential AV Person of the Year. That's pretty cool. How's it going over in Jersey?
Jersey's going well. Thank you for the nod. It was an honor to be selected to that. It was flattering, and oh my God, what am I doing up against some of these people on the list, which is was a surprise. Did not see all that. Did not see that coming. I thought when they had originally come up with that, I was figuring I was going to see all the cool people that I normally see online, people like Joe Way and Jason Ward and all these big time online players and Mr. Coxon, and yeah, that it caught me off guard. So thank you. Jersey's great. Lockdown. I got my COVID haircut, so I'm wearing my Corona hair cover in my hat, and I dressed up in my favorite black T-shirt because that's how I roll. And excited to start and get this conversation going.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And the best of the West, Mr. Coxon. What are you doing out there in LA, buddy?
Staying in my house. No, I guess we're the governor's saying May 31st for some places here, so we're holing up. But no, we're doing great. It's nice to be able to live in an age where we can connect this way digitally, because 100 years ago we would have had to write each other letters and wait 2 weeks for them to get across the country. So this is a much better situation to be in. I'm super excited to be here with you guys.
Yeah, this is going to be fun, and we're reuniting the AV SmackDown team. It's been almost 2 years, so this is going to be fun. So I'm going to jump right in to this discussion, and if anyone has questions, please type them in the chat window. We're going to certainly try to address as many of those as we possibly can. So, okay, let me see here. There we go. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to start with is people are confused about personal brand versus corporate brand. And Chris, you and I had a phone conversation about this a couple weeks ago, and so I wanted to start with you and kind of get your take on what the differences are to help people understand that.
Understanding personal brand?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's personal brand is not something you set out kind of to do. It's something that you stumble upon. What is your brand? What do you want to define yourself as? When I jumped into social media about 10 years ago or so, the first place I started was LinkedIn. I was not a Facebook person. I'm still not a Facebook person. But I started with LinkedIn because my company had been going through a transition, and I was working for a pharmaceutical company at the time, and layoffs were kind of imminent. So I used LinkedIn to network. Big reason that I got onto the internet and doing this sort of stuff was to get my name out there, simply because I needed to be prepared for something that could happen. That's the worst part, right? So I started getting involved with LinkedIn and posting some articles and stuff. And when I finally was let go by my company, it was kind of, you were just waiting for the shoe to drop, essentially. I posted on LinkedIn that I had been let go with 25,000 other people on a Friday, but Monday I was starting a new job working for XYZ company. So what had happened was somebody caught that kind of little like note that I put up, and like, in the middle of the housing crisis, the worst economic downturn at the time. Obviously, we're in a whole new set of economic uncertainty right now. How did you, an AV person, just find another job? So basically, I used LinkedIn, and that person happened to be an editor for a magazine. So I kind of wrote what I did to find a job in the worst economic time, and it became a very popular article for the magazine. So they came back and asked me again, hey, what else do you got? So I basically had been somebody of I was always a project manager, a technology integrator, never a person or a position of power, right? I said, so I compete with a lot of people. The talent pool in AV is immense. There's a lot of technicians, a lot of project managers, but unfortunately, we're all kind of stuck in a lump in the same space. So how do I differentiate myself? So I carried, at the time, basically a binder that I called my portfolio, which is going back to my art days when I was in school. When you needed to show off your work, you kind of had to have a portfolio to show your artwork and prove what you did, aside from just your grades if you were trying to get into a school or university. So I did that with AV, wrote about it, another popular article. So then the third article bombed. It wasn't something that the editor was interested in. So what do I do with that? I put it out on social. I put it out on a blog. And because of that, I needed to get a Twitter. And that's how I got into expanding beyond just LinkedIn. So my personal brand is not something I set out to do, but sort of every book and everybody that I watched online and read about and I studied before I even put out my first tweet, all recommended to be careful in how you do it, because you're going to it's going to live with you forever, right? Keg stands in college will come back and haunt you at some point if you're looking for some sort of job that doesn't involve keg stands or beer. So, be careful what you're posting. And every book about Twitter and social media all talked about personal brand. So I kind of dug in and learned about it. And basically, you set these rules up and how you want to use social media, and that's how you follow it. And that's worked for me for 10 years. It's not been easy, but that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah. And Mark, why does it matter that people think about their personal brand?
Well, I think there's a couple reasons that it matters. I mean, Chris talked about it connecting you to other people in the industry. I think that's a huge thing. If anybody listens to Gary Vaynerchuk, who's a social media personality, he likens personal brand to reputation. People say, oh, I don't need a personal brand. He goes, well, what about your reputation? You're like, oh, reputation's everything. Oh, but that's what personal brand is. It's just this reputation you build online. And it's connecting the dots between your expertise and your interests and you as a person. And the reason that it's super important, I mean, I remember reading a Harvard Business Review article a few years ago about hiring practice today. And if an HR manager is hiring somebody, the first thing they do is they social profiles a lot of times. And they're starting to look at, who is this person? And honestly, the great takeaway I heard in that article was that if you were under 30 years old and they were looking for you online and they couldn't find you, they assumed you had deleted your profiles before you applied for the job.
Oh,
that was the blanket assumption, was that you had an online footprint, and if they couldn't find it, it must have been bad and you've turned it off.
Yeah.
And so we have to think about the way other people think. We do live in a world where people do research. And so, you know, creating a personal brand really allows you to create the type of content around you to present the face to the market that you want to present, so that when people do go looking for you, they find what you want them to find, number one, and also just who you are. So.
Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you also, as a member of the media, when I'm writing an article or a content piece on a topic, and I've seen someone on social media consistently talking about this topic and offering insight, that's who I'm going to call to interview for the article. That's the name that'll come to mind. And note here on this slide, 2 practical reasons for personal branding is photos of faces convert well online. So rather than a company logo, include, you know, your personal photos. And then Mark, you touched on this, just the recruiting aspect of it, using LinkedIn and social media. And sadly, I think there are going to be a lot of displaced people when this is over, and a lot of shuffling within our industry. So now is a great time to be thinking about your brand. And if you are not a person who minds your LinkedIn profile, I suggest you become that, because that's going to be really, really critical following this crisis.
Camille, I can add to this as well. When you talk about brand, and something that both me and Mark both practice quite often, when you're establishing your brand and who you are, and you said about pictures and stuff, one of the simplest ways to brand yourself is to go out and just get a headshot. Okay, you don't have to go and ask you know, a famous photographer to take your headshot on top of you know, the Empire State Building or some photogenic thing, but just go get a headshot. Passport photo, right? Something that you can show who you are in the proper lighting, and it's not a selfie, and it's not you with the, you know, with the dog on top of your lap. If that's your thing, so be it. Go out and get a professional headshot, and then take that headshot and use it across all your channels. Yeah. And the reason why is this: that picture will be found online, and it's the consistent same picture. It also will help you establish who you are as your brand. We don't have a trademark. We don't have a swoosh. We don't have 3 stripes. Our face and who we are the brand. So as we move, we are recognizable on top of our names, but attached to our face and our picture. So if there's one small little bit of advice that I would give people is get yourself a proper headshot and have it used consistently across the board. If you're writing for magazines, that's the one you submit. If you change one, if you decide, hey, you know what, I want an updated shot. Like right now, if I was to take my current shot, you would see a very messy head of hair. And, you know, we're kind of living in this like weird kind of time right now. So I'm not going to go get a new headshot. But if I was to do that, I would change it across the board, whether it's my LinkedIn, my Twitter, Instagrams, all that. And the other thing is to use the same consistent name where possible. Like on Instagram, I am AVIXA, and part of that is my name wasn't available. Yeah. So that is something of, you know, small little bit of advice for everybody who's trying to build that up. Consistency a lot of times, and you hear it echoed a lot in this conversation. Yeah, yeah. I love this quote from Seth Godin: a personal brand is a set of expectations, memories, stories, and relationships that, taken together, account for consumers' decision to choose one product or service over another. And so it very much translates to a business environment as well. And what you put out there, people want to do business with people, not companies. Mm-hmm. You're a representation of your company, whether you're hired by that company or you are your own brand. You represent what you represent, right? So I've never owned my own company, but I always worked for other companies. And my rules that I spoke about before of things that I won't say or talk about or do online have guided me along that, because like Mark said, you say something that's a little bit too edgy, people can take it down the wrong path. Yeah. You want to stay consistent in your messaging. I've decided I'm going to be more tech focused. Yeah, I throw in a dash of my dog, and you're going to see pictures of stuff that I'm cooking, but you know what? That's who I am. And for the first year or so, I wasn't doing that online. So a lot of what I was perceived to me was that I was just a retweeter, kind of, you know, information sharer, that sort of stuff, until I discovered Instagram. And I decided early with Instagram that I was going to use that to bring out who I am and show a side of me that I don't do on Twitter because Twitter's always been more business focused.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, that's interesting because Mark, you do show a lot more of your family stuff on your social media. Why did you make the choice to do that?
So I'll say this, I mean, personal brand does need to have some personal aspect, right? A personal brand isn't you putting your name on your business and retweeting everything the marketing department tells you to retweet, right? That's not really a personal brand. So, you know, I think we all have levels of comfort on what we share, right? And we're allowed to have that. You know, I don't get involved in heavy political or religious discussions on LinkedIn. I may make some general comments. I may show a picture of my daughter cooking because she's a culinary student, or my other daughter who's into robotics. But I try to make that just a small piece to let people know who I am as a person. And, you know, it doesn't have to be your family. It can be interests. I've seen some people share their sci-fi shows that they love, or I've seen people share around music. JP Ward Jason is real good about sharing different music. There's a Samurai Apocalypse Heather. She likes to share sci-fi shows and different bands that she likes and things like that. And, you know, so we can all share parts of ourselves that we're comfortable sharing. But what it does is it also creates some variety in the type of content that you're sharing from a day-to-day basis. Because you've got to think you live in a feed, and that feed scrolls. And so as soon as somebody sees your face, if every time they see your face, they go, oh, link to article, they may just keep scrolling by. But if you have this varied piece of content, like sometimes it might be about a sci-fi show, sometimes it might be about tech, sometimes it might be your company, sometimes it might not, people will stop and actually look at what you're posting because there's variety, and they may be interested in 2 or 3 things that you do and maybe not another. So it keeps you from being passed by, and it keeps people invested in what is he actually saying at this point in time.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I want to delve down into some of these specific tools that all 3 of us have used to varying degrees. And we have a poll question because as we get into this more, we'd like to spend more time. And in a few slides, we're going to help people develop an action plan for their own personal brand. And if you will pick one of these, and I realize you could probably pick all of them, but what kind of personal branding tool do you see yourself utilizing the most? Select the one that really resonates with you, and then when we get to that action plan slide, the guys and I will know which one to delve in on. So go ahead and take a minute to vote. And while you're doing that, I'm going to ask you guys, because we've all used all of these, but Chris, I want to go to you a little bit on the podcast and webinar and I think, you know, we're very good friends, so I feel like I can say that I feel like your personality really carries your ability to do things like be the MC at the AV Mag Awards, you know, which is a huge honor it's a global thing, and they bring you over from the US to do that alongside Tim Albright. You guys have done a great job. So what, if someone says, yeah, I could really kind of see myself doing that, what advice would you give for getting into that?
Well, a lot of it has to do with how I act on social, to be honest with you. I stay very, very neutral down the road, and because I want to hear everybody's opinions. And 90% of the reason why I do that, I would say, is because I learn from everybody. The one thing that I bring into this that was pre-social media was that I don't know everything, right? And I have to learn because, you know, I got Mark on you know, on this panel with me so I can riff off of him. But when we did, you know, a show together, Mark was the smart guy and I was the funny guy. You know, Mark was the guy who had the intellectual answers and I had the passionate answers, right? I make the passion plea while Mark is driving home the science of it. If you pair up with certain personalities, it gives a different perspective. Now, I get up every morning, I put my pants on and go to work. Well, considering what we're currently going through, maybe sweatpants or shorts, depends on what climate you're in. But your personality comes into play because you have to be engaging to the people. And part of the reason why that I like to stay kind of neutral is because I kind of want to be an understanding of how everybody's kind of going through and what they're going through at the moment, right? Whether it is creating the community and building the community because I'm answering and actually listening to what people are saying and then bringing that back in the conversation, a big part of what I do is networking. Networking is that trait that you're asking, kind of, you're saying it's my personality. Personality, I'm a talkative person, right? I edit myself because I'm from Jersey, so I clean up my language a little bit when I come out and do these type of webinars that you find folks. But, you know, my networking ability, or the ability to speak, I'm not a wallflower for the most part. If you know me in real life, what you see in real life is what you see in online. I'm not very different. I'm willing to help. I think if you bring that personality and that networking across that way, right?
Yeah.
There are people that want to be, and me and Mark have talked about, there's people out there that all they want to do is end game any conversation, right? They're there to make a point and slam it down, and you're wrong, and that's the way it is. I'm going to approach it a little differently. I want to hear the difference. You know, you got people in Canada, guys like, you know, Jared Hillman and Brock McGinnis, that have a different point of view than somebody does in the southern part of the state, right? And you're allowed to have different opinions. And you got to understand that walking into social media, that not everybody's going to agree with you. But you can learn. And how you use that is going to make a big difference.
Well, and I think, Mark, you and I have talked about, you know, tone. And I think there's a way to, and you're the master at this, at bringing up a different point of view, but in a respectful way. Talk about that for a little bit.
Well, I think this is part of personal branding is, and Derek Kelly asked us in the Q&A about finding your brand voice, about finding the voice of your personal brand. And I think there are two things here. I think number one, you know, you find the things that you're passionate about. For me, I'm passionate about, you know, the fact that I think we think less about users and more about equipment and AV. And some people may agree or disagree about the importance of that. But I try to bring those conversations to the forefront as a devil's advocate, as the 10th man. You know, should we be thinking more about soft skills in these things than just the hard training? But one of the great things, you know, that I've always been able to do, and I, you know, I credit it to some writing classes I had and things like that. But, you know, when you're going to come out and give a different statement, make sure you understand the alternate point of view first. Like what Chris said, the important part of what he does is he understands what all the viewpoints are out there. By creating a neutral sounding board, he understands the other viewpoints. So then when you write something, number one, you already have those opposing viewpoints in mind when you write your article or when you write your piece of content or when you post on Twitter. And then when somebody comes up, it's not a surprise or an attack, it's an intelligent fact that you've already considered and that you have an answer for. And then you can have a great back and forth discussion with people. And I think that's really what opens doors. I think writing something that's a little different catches people's attention, which is important. And I'll also say that personal brand can also empower you to possibly be a little different than you are in real life. So, you know, creating a personal brand, when I did this AV Phenom, you know, it honestly, I'm a pretty self-deprecating person if you know me in person. So to name myself AV Phenom is kind of a weird thing for me to do. And even I'm still a little uncomfortable with it. But what I wanted to do was give myself permission and courage to put my viewpoints out. So online, I feel like I can say the things that maybe I wouldn't say as boldly in person if I didn't know you. I can put these things out. I can amplify the part of my personality that's outgoing, that's a little sarcastic, that's a little challenging at times. I can put those things out there in the social world. And then because people know me as a person, they know my intent. So my content is one thing, and then them knowing me personally allows them to connect my intention. And then when the two come together, that's when you have a lot of power, because people know what you think, but also who you are. And it does, and it makes things much better received, and it helps you promote yourself a lot better.
And I want to talk briefly about this bullet point, living out your passion, because, you know, my background is writing, and I've been a B2B content writer my entire career. My degrees are in that. And if there is a gifting or a talent you have, and Mark, I would say yours is educating, because you are great at teaching. You have taught me so much, and you are really great at just breaking it down to the least common denominator and then building on that. And everyone that comes away from your sessions, I feel like they grow. So I think knowing and understanding your passion and where you want to take your career is really key to building your brand, because that's going to help you develop the list of tools that are where you can be successful. You know what I'm saying? Would you agree, Chris?
Not only would I agree, but look at the situation that me and Mark had the ability or the opportunity to work together at a company where obviously that's where we kind of met up here, right? And we kind of did our own thing. But me and Mark, we've been, ever since we connected online a bunch of years ago, we've always been, we're the guys that'll go off and have a conversation. He'll call me on the phone while I was driving home for 3 hours when I was doing long commutes. And we talk about like, listen, how does this work? Because this doesn't seem to work. That was when we're trying and there is that spaghetti on the wall kind of moments where you're trying to figure out what it is that you do. And then you stumble across something and you're like, oh my God, how did I do that? And then we analyze what we actually do. Mm-hmm. It's not that we sit there and constantly, are scheming and trying to figure out what it is to do. But, right now, there are so many people rushing to social media, right? Whether it's for good or bad reasons, right? Right now, you have TV programming is kind of shot right now. There's no sports. People are going to the internet and they're trying to find themselves and what they want to do, right? Mm-hmm. So my take is, you are a professional marketer. That is what you went to school for. That's what you understand. I will tell you that I am not a marketer. I was told I'm not a marketer. And then in conversations, people said, no, you are a marketer, but you're just a little different.
You're different, all right. I'll give you that.
I'll take different. But if marketing, the way marketing works for me, right? Look at me and Mark right now. Mark is always in a 3-button polo when we do these videos. I'm always in a black t-shirt. Why is that? That's kind of what we built. Yeah. Right. That's kind of how our thing is. Right. And in working with you at a former company, I got to learn that, it is content creation. There is a polished look to things that need to happen. Right. You kind of, you go to work for companies. I've never owned my own company. So working for a company, even with a company like Starin, right. I come in with a social media presence. And there's been conversation, I can see a little bit of it coming up on the chats about separating yourself, your personal from your work.
Yeah.
I made a decision 10 years ago that what I was putting out was going to be professional, right? If a company has a problem with the fact that I am posting that I love to cook pizza or eat pizza, unless it's health related, dude, that's who I am, right? I have no issues with that, but that's part of getting to know who I am, right? And getting to know who I am and the company that I work for, it's just as important that you kind of echo their values. Yes. And those rules that I keep talking about. I'll be flat out honest about, I don't talk about race, sex, religion. I have no conversations for that. At times, I won't even tell you what baseball team or football team I like because I might upset people in Boston, right? I am that cautious about that, but that's what I choose to do. If you are passionate about sports, go for it. But understand that you may be, skewing your views for people from a certain area, right? Yeah. My second largest group of people, right? And I have 8,000 followers on Twitter, right? The biggest chunk comes from the US, right? When I analyze my Twitter followers, my next biggest group is from the UK. Was it me going there that created that? Or was the fact that maybe I do appeal to what they talk about? It is different in the UK than it is here in terms of video and not video, but audiovisual and how relations and business relations they're very different. There's different rules and regulations across the sea. I thought Canada would have been my second largest following, and it's not. It goes to show you don't control it. It kind of just happens. And if it happens organically, then it's perfect. Yeah. That's what you want, is an organic kind of thing. And if coming on and having a t-shirt and that connects or resonates with somebody, if it's a rock t-shirt, if it's just, not a business attire, then you feel kind of comfortable and I'm approachable. That's kind of where I'm going.
Hey, and I have, I wanted to there's several questions on differentiating personal versus professional. And it's interesting because we all have sort of a different approach. And so I was just going to share my approach. So I use Facebook for personal, and I have maybe 3 people that I know through work that I'm Facebook friends with because I'm very involved in faith-based stuff and I don't want to offend anyone. And I use Twitter and LinkedIn for professional. And that's just how I choose to separate it. And if business associates friend me on Facebook, I send them a note and let them know that I do my professional activity on Twitter and LinkedIn. So, and I've done that for so many years that people are just used to that at this point. But, you know, that's a suggestion. And I think we have other questions about Facebook style posts on LinkedIn. When you create your personal brand, you have to decide how you're going to communicate that. And some people's communication style is just more casual. And if that's who you are, I mean, if Neto, if you posted some flowery sounding thing on LinkedIn, I'd be like, where did you plagiarize this from? This isn't you.
That's not my gig. That's not what I do. But the Facebook style post on LinkedIn, and I'll flip it to Mark, but honestly, in the last 30 to 60 days, all rules are off. Right now, it seems like everybody is off the rails. They don't know what's going on or where they're going. So you're seeing a lot more Facebook posts. You're seeing a lot more that style posting on LinkedIn. Twitter's getting, inundated with a lot of different, people are obviously tweeting about toilet paper 24/7. It's weird, but you kind of have to you have to take a step back, look what's going on in the world and going, all right, I understand that. There are some hardliners on LinkedIn that are very, you can't do this, you can't do that. LinkedIn is for professional. Guess what?
Yeah.
We're all in it together. And when
Yeah.
you're all in it together, we're all standing in line at Walmart trying to see if they have, produce, right?
Yeah.
Those are the people that are connecting with me. And you're finding that there are people out there that are, in the same boat. That's the new interest. What's your take on the Facebook style posts, Mark?
So, I mean, I get what people say. I think the original backlash on Facebook style posts was the, like the IQ puzzles or, the little things that people post on there, do this math problem and put the answer. And people didn't like it in their feeds because they're using LinkedIn to try to manage their professional network.
Mhm.
I get that. This is my take on social, and even on some of these separation issues that we're talking about, is that if you would have these conversations in person with a business associate, then it can go in a business platform, right? Like I met a person who's an agent for CB Richard Ellis. He said, anytime I meet somebody at a networking event, we end up doing business together. Okay, great. Why is that? What type of conversation you had? Well, we didn't talk about work really. He knew where I worked, but we talked about the founding fathers, or we talked about this, or we talked about my boat, or we talked about these things that they had in common. So if there are passions and pieces of you that you would feel comfortable discussing in a networking event or in an in-person business event, those things should be fair game for whatever platform you want to put on. And those are the things that connect you in person. And when we think about networking events and places we go, when we meet up at InfoComm, do we all get together and meet up at InfoComm because we're going to talk about the product specs of the latest product from our company? No, we're talking about
sing karaoke.
Yeah, we're going to talk about our lives. We're going to talk about music that we like. We're going to talk about, the things that are happening. And maybe some of those have business implications that we can share with each other, but we're not getting into speeds and feeds and throw up and show up. So I think, that whole thing of if you're comfortable talking about it with your business associates in a casual networking environment, social media is social. That's part of it. This isn't point and shoot advertising, right? Where I put up an ad and you convert to a purchase on my website. That's not what social media was ever intended for. And the less we use it that way, the more actual authenticity we'll build as a brand.
Hey, Gabe Maranta, our mutual friend, has a really good question that I want to throw out to you guys. I'm just going to read it. I have a lot of industry friends that are currently unemployed or furloughed that have never even thought of LinkedIn or Twitter. I don't recall how I came to social media. What advice do you have for getting started? I'm constantly being asked, and what I now realize is this generic advice of join this or follow this. It just jumped off, but you get the feel for it. He's asking, how do people get started with social media? So you guys have been at this a lot of years. So for some of these young professionals and people that are furloughed, that are feeling overwhelmed, what do you tell those folks?
Can I jump here first?
Yeah.
I'll say that the thing that started me and really started getting me involved in social media was participating in forums and chat groups and things like that. There are a lot of places where people are asking questions about AV where, you know, I used to go to commercial integrators, Ask a Pro forum, and I would go in there and just do knowledge share. People were asking for, how do I fix this? Or I own this type of company. What are some type of products that would fix that? Reddit is great for this now. There are a lot of places that are great for that. Then what happens is you'll start to connect with individuals in these chat rooms that have these questions, and you start to develop a relationship with those people. Then those become really easy connections on LinkedIn. When I do share things on LinkedIn, when we talk about like building networks, if I do share something on LinkedIn or I share something on Twitter or something like that, if somebody comes in and comments or somebody comes in and likes or shares one of my posts, if I'm not connected to them, I'll automatically put out a connection request. If somebody views my profile, I'll put out a connection request to the person. Typically just to say, hey, you were interested in me in some way, to click my profile, we might as well connect and see what we do. I think the more that we again share and contribute value, the better. For me, my arc was, you know, it turned into that from the chat rooms. I was doing so much on the chat rooms that Commercial Integrator eventually started after these were the CE Pro forums before Commercial Integrator existed. They asked me to start writing there. My writing made me invest in a online Twitter profile in 2010, you know, 10 years ago now, because I needed some place to broadcast and to share links to things that I had posted and I wanted to share and information I wanted to share. And the networks really started building from there. So I think, you know, what I would do is if I was a professional looking, I would find topics that I'm passionate about, find Facebook groups, Reddit threads, LinkedIn professional groups that are already discussing those topics that I'm passionate about. Join those groups and participate with no expectation of anything in return, and start to see who gravitates towards you and double down on that. Because Chris and I both know, we're both going to tell you, the main thing you can do, people were asking too about relevance. How do I rate my social profile? I have 2,000 connections on LinkedIn. What does that mean? Engagement. Who talks to you? Do you talk back to people? When you share something, do 2,000 people comment on it? Are people going back and forth? If you're encouraging people to spend their time engaging with you, you're winning. And whether that's 15 people or 2,000 people, it doesn't matter. Invest in the 15 people that you have now, and the 2,000 people come later.
Yeah, I remember last year during InfoComm, Chris, I was tracking your engagement numbers, and at times you were like second or third above all these huge companies, above InfoComm itself. I mean, how do you generate that kind of engagement?
Time, patience, and authenticity, I guess, would be part of it. A couple different things about what people said about what platforms and stuff. I really focus on 3 platforms. LinkedIn is where it is my grounded professional profile, right? Everything I do, and I've taught this in a class and explained this in classes as well, is that everything I do goes back to LinkedIn. And the reason why is this: that is where I have my street cred, right? For, you know, layman's terms. That's where I have my CTS. That's where I have my certifications, my degree. You want to come at me about what I don't know? Check where my sources are, right? If I'm not the right person to talk about audio, I'm not going to talk about audio.
Yeah.
And you can check why, because I don't have audio certifications. Right now, it is a great time for people that are currently out of work, right, or furloughed, or looking to change careers. You have ability to take some of these online classes, build up your credibility, right? Credibility in AV is a very weird thing, because there's going to be some haters right now that are going to come at me with, dude, you've been in this thing for 15 years. That means nothing. Wait until you're here 30. Or there's the ones that are going to tell you, hey, man, you only got your CTS. Wait until you get your CTSD and then come talk to me. Oh, you know, that's great. That's great that you guys are even looking. That proves my point. You're going back to what I have in my credibility in LinkedIn. That, you know, one of the things that drives me insane is people that talk about the anti-certs but don't have a cert. What's the reason for not? You know, like, that's kind of like my conversation piece. Why don't you then? And it's not that I'm being aggressive and asking. I want to know, what's the value there? What do you not see in the value? Tell me, because others want to know this. So your reputation and what you know and what your credibility kind of goes out through LinkedIn. And then I go to Twitter, where I use it more on the engagement and broadcast. And I've been successful on Twitter. I mean, I'm as successful as the people that have followed me. And that's it. That's straight up. Dude, nothing I do, nothing about me is special, right? I'm a kid from Jersey, you know, that's about it. I didn't go to a fancy school. I don't have a fancy degree. I don't use very big words.
You have me for that.
And I try to keep it simple, man. And part of the reason is that I want to learn and I want other people to have the same opportunities that I did, right? Because I wasn't born into this industry. I'm not the son of an integrator. I'm not, you know, the chosen one or the golden boy that got picked. So I got to work for what I got. And what I've got and what I've done and what you guys have seen online is, you know, I'm super appreciative and super grateful every day that I have people that want to listen to what I have to say or even follow the things I need to say.
Yeah.
You have to have that kind of, you almost have to have a humbleness to yourself.
Speaking of people following things you both want to say, we have a question that's really good. They want to know how you track engagement. Can you each kind of briefly touch on that?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. I mean, obviously, I think Chris and I are probably most active on Twitter, but we do use these other platforms. Chris does a lot more Instagram than I do. For me, I track engagement in a few ways. I track it, you know, obviously via who's commenting and who's responding, liking, and retweeting things. On Twitter, if you do have a Twitter profile, there is an analytics tab on the side. And you can actually pull up graphs of month over month, and you can see what was my best post and what was that post about, and was it hashtagged, and what time of day did I put it up, and all of those things, right? And you can start to see, hey, if I post Thursday nights on LinkedIn, I get a lot more attention than if I post Monday mornings, because Monday morning are fire drills, and Thursday nights people are getting ready for the weekend, right? And you'll start to see, wow, when I do that, I get 4,000 views, and when I do it on Monday, I get 500. This just takes a little time and paying attention. This isn't an all-day job. You know, Chris and I do this in the 5-minute breaks between the stuff we have to do all day long. And it's just being conscious of it and tracking that type of engagement. I'll tell you, you know, the other thing is don't get discouraged if there aren't things that are engaged with. You never know how many people lurk. I think what Chris and I have found out very often is we'll talk to somebody in person at a networking event who says, oh my gosh, I love this show that you did on XYZ, and I can't believe you guys brought up this point about this. And you go, wow, I've never seen that person on social. They've never commented on a post. You don't even know that they're watching, right?
Yeah.
And so you do have impact beyond those engagement numbers. But you have to, and I look at them as ratios of how many people follow me too. You know, if I have 20,000 followers on Instagram and I get 100 likes, or I have 2,000 followers on Instagram and I get 100 likes, the person that has 2,000 followers and 100 likes obviously has a much higher engaged audience based on percentage. So the people that are following you actually matter. And that's the way I've always tried to build my Twitter. My Twitter's only 4,500 people or 4,600 people. And the majority of those people are actually people that I know what they do. They know what I do. And they're interested in what I have to say. And so I'm fine with that. I don't want 20,000 people following me from a follow app. So I would just say focus on those things.
Okay. What about you, Chris?
I use Twitter Analytics. That's my go-to there. LinkedIn Analytics as well. Obviously, I look at what AKA TV is doing because they're tracking the whole, I guess, of either AV Tweeps or AV in the AM. AV in the AM, like Mark said, the story behind AV in the AM was that it took about 3 weeks for me to figure out that at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday, people were up doing the same thing that I was. And it was essentially, I'm up at 8 o'clock in the morning or earlier because I was rummaging around looking to figure out what I'm going to do for breakfast for my kids. So I made a cup of coffee, took a picture, answered a question. Next thing you know, it snowballed, right? I can't control that. It could have been any other time. You know,
but I think a key though is you're very consistent. I mean, people know that that's going to be available, and it's appointment Twitter at this point.
Yeah, the whole thing with how AV in the AM is going has a lot to do with consistency. It has a lot to do with the people that are engaged. I would say 90% of the people that are in that conversation are the ones that are giving me the ideas, that are helping me with questions. Guys like David Danto and the guys from AV Jam who took it over. I gave them a takeover because I couldn't physically be doing what I need to do that day. So I constantly, I'm trying to figure out, trying to evolve. I've asked, do we want to do video? Video 8 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday? No, I don't think that's going to work. But, you know, I take these numbers, I take these engagements, and like Mark says, I do look at what hits, what strikes, what doesn't, right? You know, even different types of pictures and videos and stuff like that. Does a video resonate more than a picture, right? I can tell you right now as a little tidbit, a personal picture off your LinkedIn that goes onto your LinkedIn. If you take a picture with your cell phone, it will be ranked higher and you will get more views than you would with a photo stock, right? Mm-hmm. One of the great things that I'm doing now in working with my company is that I'm bringing a social aspect to what they do. Right. So, you know, they were very forward in how they were going to engage with people, but bringing me in now has given a different perspective. Right. Because, you know, I do look at this stuff at 5 a.m, at 6 a.m. John Green has a great story of, you know, sending me a DM at 2 a.m. and I answered him about a sweater, right, which turned into an AV Christmas sweater video. And that all started with a 2 a.m. kind of conversation because John couldn't sleep. I guess, I don't know, but he sent me a message and I answered him right back. And by the morning we had an idea and a concept put together, but it has to be fast. And that's where a lot of companies like that are interested in what I can do, what Mark can do. That's kind of the hard part. And even when we work together, how do we respond quickly as an organization to these social requests, right? Because it's like bird flight. Everybody's flying along real nice. And then all of a sudden all the birds turn one way. How are you going to be that agile? Marketing plans are not agile. I'm discovering this right through the process and through my years is that if a company has, you know, this plan to go forward, right now we're living in very interesting times with COVID and Corona and everybody being locked down. Your messaging had to change. How are you changing that? How are you engaging with the people who are right now not having a great time, right? Do you still want to talk about things that don't pertain to people? That's the other part. Like, yes, I understand if you are a large display company and your displays go in lobbies and the lobbies are all shut down, how do you talk about that? Yeah. I think you pull back your messaging and you start talking about education. You start talking about the benefits of having that stuff because it's going to come back. But I don't think coming out right now with big screens and you know, other type of technology that are very focused in the business office is going to be the right messaging right now. So how do you adapt, right? And I think social media, one of the skills that it's taught me, and I'm sure Mark can tell you the same, is adaptability. You've got to be agile. You've got to change because it's constantly moving. And
I want to, we only have like 10 minutes left, so I really want to help people. I'm going to skip this one. You can read it, download our slide deck. And we've alluded to this quote that it's something that happens over time. So I really want to get to this because this is how people can develop an action plan for their personal brand. And you just alluded to this, Chris, because you were talking about a key message or mission statement. And Mark, I want to go to you on this too. I think people need to start with really understanding what their personal brand mission is. Would you agree with that?
I 100% agree. I mean, we all have our unique perspectives on the industry. And there was another question in the chat on this about, you know, how do we participate in social and drive home one without looking single-minded, right? And so what I think we do is we find out what our core passion is, like what one thing do we really want to accomplish in our career, or what one change in the industry would we really like to be a big part of facilitating, right? And then we go up a level. And this is where people get stuck, right? They go down into, this is what I want to do and I need to do X, Y, Z to get there. And they try to think in this linear process of all the steps they have to do to get there. Go up a level and look at the 4 or 5 different ways that you could approach this, and then start to put those linear pieces together. Most people start at their goal and try to work backwards, right? Like, oh, geez, there's just 17 steps. But developing that is very big. It's a very big thing because that helps you create this consistent voice and also make sure that you're being authentic.
And you know, that's a big thing to take on, and we may actually do another session on this because, like you said, it's across all your platforms. So it's almost like choosing a spouse. You're kind of married to it once you do it. So I want to talk about some of these industry events. And Chris, you've really maximized your participation in these events. How important is it when you go to these events to be visible, and how do you convey your brand at these events?
Well, most of the time when I'm at an event, I'm representing the company that I'm
Yeah,
working for.
yeah.
So I am there first and foremost as Starin now. So if I'm walking into a place, I'm representing my brand there. So I'm not there to, it's all business for me, right? Yes, there's a lot of networking, a lot of fun, but in the back of my head, I know what I'm there for and what I'm doing. I'm a brand representative.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if everybody takes that on, that you're there representing the brand and you're just not there to party, I mean, that's just good basic knowledge, right? You are who you represent in this case. Yeah. So to maximize the infocomms and the different shows that are out there, I go in with a plan. I know what the events are that I will be attending and what keynotes and whatever, but I'm going there to work, right? And I'm also going there specifically for FaceTime. So yeah, me and Mark did a show together where we were working together. And at that time we were up at 6 and we knew that we had to be at we were at Starbucks because we knew that people were going to be at Starbucks at a certain time. So we were there and we made time for that. Then we went and did what we had to do at our trade show booth. And then we broke away to meet with people, right? I also use technology. So my Outlook calendar is constantly going off. My watch is going off, telling me that people are tweeting. Where are we going? What's for lunch? This, that. I can do it because I'm kind of, built for that now. It's been years of trying to do this, but I put my time in to meet with people. The best thing I can do at these trade shows is to get to know people, to sit down and have a coffee, even if it's not a coffee, if it's just walking from one place to another and getting to know who these people are. And then remembering. The other thing is, it's kind of weird, but I have a pretty good memory of things that transpire, what people wear, what people are talking about. And then I'll bring that up again, right? That's kind of like my thing. I invest myself in the people. And if you know how to network and you really do care about the people that you're talking about, you're going to invest time in building those relationships. Yeah. And then you're carrying that on online. So it's really maximizing your time. And I know it sucks. It sucks because you're going to get up at 6 and you're going to go to bed at 1 or 2 in the morning. Not necessarily that I'm out there drinking or partying until 2, but I'm trying to spread it myself out and you have 3 days, work it, right?
Yeah, I remember when we were at Digital Signage Week last year and you and I kept trying to connect. And you were 100 places, I was, and finally we passed at that one event. Mm-hmm. You were leaving, I was coming. I saw you for like 3 minutes the whole week.
I try, you got to plan it out. You got to move. And again, it's back to being, plans are fluid. They're going to change. You got to take advantage of it, right? Yeah. And going back to the conversations that we had, just before with Mark, and Mark was talking about connecting with people online. I've connected with some very famous people online. It's weird how they follow me and I follow them. And I built relationships with these people that people would not expect, that I am able to DM, a Food Network chef, or that I'm able to have a conversation with a Discovery Network person behind the scenes, right? And it's because I'm learning how they do it. Celebrities are great. I don't follow many celebrities, but the ones that I do is the ones that I look at and how they use their networking capability and their ability to use these online profiles or platforms to further themselves. So there is some justice to following crazy people online to see what they do right and wrong. But again, that's just my little side note of what people can.
And another thing I want to bring up is right now there are a lot of unique opportunities for training. And training and certifications definitely inform your brand. And, Mark, you're one of a handful of people that's double CTS certified globally. And I remember when we worked together, I wanted to use that to promote things. And you didn't like that because you're so humble. But that's important. And I think, people can look at a lot of opportunities. The opening slide for our webinar today, AVIXA is offering free training. Why would you not do that?
It's one of the greatest things that's happened in this, I think, is the amount of trainings and CTS opportunities from AV Nation, from Rave, from AVIXA, from Legrand put out a whole day. You could get 6 credits. I mean, this is a great time to educate yourself. Yeah. I was one of these people who criticized industry education early because I thought there was opportunity for improvement. And, you know, that led me to actually go and get all the certifications. So I had a lot more street cred, not only in what I thought should be better about the programs, but
Yeah.
also in what I thought the value of the programs were on the outside of the industry. So it's an amazing tool. And if people aren't taking advantage of it, I really hope that they'll go to, you know, the AVIXA site and start taking some of the classes that are out
Yeah,
there.
and also on my digital signage magazine, our home site is called avnetwork.com. And we have just started, my boss, Megan Dutta, the wonderful Megan, has just started a Pro AV Education Resource Clearinghouse. So as we get these opportunities from AVIXA, from all these manufacturers, from you know, up brands globally, we're continually updating that. So definitely, you can also follow me on @DigiMag, which is my digital signage magazine Twitter handle. And I tweeted out this morning the link for that. But go back often because we get them every day. So that's avnetwork.com and then search for Pro AV Education Resources. And we are like right up against the clock, but Mark, I want you to talk briefly about crisis communications because we're in a very unique situation right now and it's not maybe business as usual. And you and I had a call about this and you brought up so many good points. So can you address this?
So number one, the first thing we don't want to be is promotional during a crisis, right? I mean, I hear a lot of people refer to COVID-19 opportunities and it makes me cringe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there is opportunity for us to help people. And I think if we're going to focus on an opportunity, that's where we need to focus. And doing things like consolidating resources, right? Like figuring out where a whole bunch of different, you know, cameras or microphones or things people need at home may be consolidated is great. Putting out a guide for free that tells people where they can go get stuff that doesn't lead back to you is a great way to build some credibility and help people. Making sure that when you're talking to people, you understand that, you know, other people are struggling too. I mean, I had a guy call me and I picked up, I thought he was a friend of mine and probably had a problem. And he was trying to get me to switch my 401k over to his financial company, saying that I needed to quit contributing now because the stock market was a rock to the bottom. And it just rang really, you know, it didn't make me feel good inside.
By the way,
it wasn't authentic. It was, yeah. And I think this is the time where you really start to, when you start to connect those dots, when you start to really create empathy, create resources for people, help connect people around passions or problems that they're having. You know, do a roundtable with companies, invite a whole bunch of companies that you know are facing the same problem to a roundtable, and don't use it as an opportunity to talk. Host a meeting, get seven major people you know together from 7 companies that have similar businesses and let them share best practices and just be a fly on the wall. Shut up. Like you're not there to sell at that point. And I think those are the things that we can really do as an industry to show where our value is, but we can do as people to really promote our personal brand around the I guess the help and the empathy we want to give and not the things we want to sell.
Yeah. We've got like 2 minutes left, but our friend Stuart Hillis over in the UK is asking about engagement alerts on a portable device. What are your thoughts on that?
I wish my phone and my watch lasted all day, Stuart. It doesn't. It will vibrate at one of these, you know, at an InfoComm, for example. I have to carry 3 battery packs with me. It's ridiculous. You know, I typically carry a Go Pack for what I do, and a lot of what I do is mobile. I don't rely on, you know, a whole lot of systems. I do a lot of my stuff live and online, live in the moment, as opposed to pre-programmed. So a lot of the stuff is being done on the phone as I'm moving. And to be honest with you, cell phone coverage has always been an issue at these places. So, you know, I do tell people that if there are certain things that you want to get out there for your own personal brand, you need to probably pre-program that into something like a Tweetdeck and stuff like that, so that it does go off and then you ensure that it goes out. But for the most part, most of my responses, most of my engagement, most of my interactivity is going to be done on the fly. Okay.
Hey, our friend Justin Doston suggests you change the name of AV in the AM because it's PM in Ireland when you run it.
Of all the people that would
I
come
know,
on this
I'm like,
webinar,
thanks,
it would be
Justin.
it would be Justin Dawson to give me a little
Uh,
grief about AV and the PM.
I know,
Thank you,
right?
sir.
So thanks for listening, Justin. We're going to end just briefly with us each saying how people can get in touch with us. I hope we can do this again because we honestly are just scratching the surface, and it's obviously something people want to hear more about. But Mark, if people want to reach you, what's the best way to do that?
On the screen there, take a screenshot at AVPhenom on Twitter. That's the place I'm probably the most active. I am on LinkedIn as well. You can find me on LinkedIn, and I think you can get the link to my LinkedIn profile from my Twitter page. And if you want to reach me at my business, it's mcoxon@tangraminteriors.com, and that's my cell phone on there too. I'm always available via text and via phone call.
Okay, perfect. Mr. Netto, what about you? How can people reach out?
You got there is my my work email where I work at. Starin.biz is our website. That is the company I work for, where I spend you know, a big chunk, if not, God, the way we're working nowadays, we're not there 8 hours or 9 hours a day anymore. So we're there all the time. You can reach me at chris.netto@starin.biz quite often at any time. Obviously, you know, my Twitter, hit me up on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn. That's another good way. I spend a lot of times, you know, I get DMs from LinkedIn quite a lot. Unless you're selling me surgical masks, I'm not interested in that right now, but I will do anything that you know, if you have a question, I'll be more than happy to assist there. And on Twitter, obviously, take a look at my company's page at starin.biz, and give us a follow on our Twitter as well, which is Starin_MKG.
And I do want to mention that Starin has a ton of good training, and you have Melissa Dillman, Educator of the Year a few years back. She is amazing. So when you're checking into this training, do not forget to look at Starin's website to see what they've got. And I am at CamilleBirch@gmail.com. I'm on LinkedIn under that name. Twitter is at Birch_Cam or at Digimag, DIGIMAG, which is Digital Signage Magazine. I invite you to subscribe. It's free. And my website is avnetwork.com. So thanks so much, guys. Wow, it's been fun. We only went 2 minutes over, which is freaking amazing. So
we
I'm
can change
proud.
that if you want. You want to?
We have almost 50 questions, so I tried to get to as many as I could here. But let's see if we can't do this again, and maybe we'll tackle more of these questions, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks so much, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar on building your personal brand during challenging situations. This recording will be available at avixa.org/webinars within about 4 business days, and your RU credit will be applied to your transcript within about 5 to 7. If you have any trouble, please contact webinars@avixa.org. And thank you, Camille, Chris, Mark. You guys were wonderful, and love to have a number 2 of this. This has been really great.
Can we do it again tomorrow? This is
Y'all were wonderful, and
I love you guys. 2 of the best guys in AV, so thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Bye.